We heard from multiple officials in Surfside, Florida, on the 5th day searching for survivors there. Here's what we know right now. 135 people have been accounted for from those towers. 151, as we said, are unaccounted for. 10 have lost their lives. Federal officials are on the scene. They're analyzing whether a federal investigation will be conducted and how this could affect building codes going forward. Stephanie Ramos is in Surfside with more on this. And Stephanie, we know you've been talking to families there for the last few days. What are you hearing from them? I just can't imagine, what they're going through.
All right, Terry. Well, many of them are starting to come to grips that their loved ones may not have survived the collapse. And they're, for the last couple of days, we've seen so many different emotions from the families here on the ground. Fear of the unknown, just an emotional roller coaster for these folks. But at the same time, here we are, day 5, and many of these families are not completely losing hope. They know that these search and rescue teams are out there trying to find their loved ones, and they're getting that comfort from officials here on the ground, telling them this is not a recovery effort just yet. This is a search and rescue effort because they're doing everything they can to try and find their loved ones. So they are still hanging on here on the 5th day of this tragic incident. Terry.
For sure. And that effort down there, Stephanie, is just a massive undertaking. Just looking at it is staggering. Federal officials now are on the scene. They're analyzing whether a federal investigation will be conducted. What are the feds there for? What are they looking for?
So the first steps seem to be a preliminary recon, right? They're scouring the area. As you mentioned, it is a huge undertaking, big operation down there just a few blocks away from where we are. And you've seen those images. There is debris scattered everywhere. So how we understand it is that these teams, these federal agents, are going to begin to basically connect the dots, and they're going to assess what kind of evidence and what kind of pieces of perhaps building or other information they may be able to collect and also preserve. So they're going to bring all of that together and inspect it and move forward from there. It's going to take time. We've heard that from officials. This is going to be a slow process because it's so methodical and they're being so careful with each piece of debris. And it isn't just a small pieces. These are oversized giant concrete slabs of concrete and stone, and so it's a lot to sift through, but that's what they're working on. But right now they're in that preliminary recon stage, Terry.
And looking for those telltale signs of structural collapse. There's a whole science about how to do this. But Stephanie, just looking at the pictures and where you are, these rescuers clearly working in incredibly hazardous conditions, mountains of that debris and rubble. One building already half down. Who knows how the rest of it is going to do, and others perhaps affected. How dangerous is it for those rescuers down there?
It is dangerous, and that's another concern for their teams, for the local officials that are here, the federal officials. They want to work as quickly as they can to get those answers to the families, but they also understand that their teams are also putting their lives at risk. We know there was one firefighter that was captured on video kind of falling from some of the rubble, falling a few feet. He's okay, but that's just an example of how careful they have to kind of maneuver their way through that rubble, and that's on their minds. And they have so many people down there working on this as part of this operation. We know with the Israeli army being here, teams from the Israeli army, we spoke with the minister of the diaspora yesterday telling us that he's got about 80 or so teams broken up working with American teams here. So just a small portion of the efforts that we're seeing, but there are a lot of personnel down there on the ground working 12-hour shifts, and they all have to be careful so that they can also go home to their families.
Absolutely. Such a difficult task there. People really doing brave work. Stephanie Ramos in Surfside, Florida, thank you. Thank you for your work throughout this story. And officials in Miami-Dade County, they held a press conference earlier today giving an update on the important search and rescue efforts that Stephanie was just talking about. Let's listen to them.
We are exploring all possible avenues that they identify. And we're going to continue and work ceaselessly to exhaust every possible option in our search. I repeat, the search and rescue operation continues.
You can hear that determination, and having covered earthquakes, people, and other kinds of disasters like that where buildings collapse, people can survive in those voids for a long time, for days and days. We're joined now to talk about this with Florida State Representative Joseph Geller. He represents the 100th District, which includes Surfside. Representative Geller, thanks for joining us once again. We saw you last week, and I just want to ask, how is your community doing, especially the families? What are you hearing from them in these difficult days?
It's tough. I mean, so many people are just uncertain. They don't have any word from family members. It's really very difficult. But as you heard the mayor say, the search and rescue operation continues. We're praying and hoping that there still could be someone that's alive that can be pulled out safely. And right now, that's very much the focus, is trying to see if there's anyone that could still possibly be saved.
And they will continue until they're certain that that is not a possibility. That remains a disaster zone, and experts have said it could take months to clear the site, identify remains, and establish the beginning of an understanding of what happened. So how are family members, do you think, handling that information? And how are you communicating with them? What are you able to tell them about what's going on?
You know, all we can tell them is that Miami-Dade County has nationally recognized search and rescue teams. We have people that go all over the world. So certainly we're doing everything we can here in our own community. There are teams from Israel. There are teams from Mexico. Everyone is doing everything possible to hope that we can still find survivors. But as I heard you saying just a few moments ago, this also has to be done in a way that keeps our first responders safe. We don't want one more single casualty on that site. And they're working as quick as they can, working 12-hour shifts. But we need to also prioritize the safety of the people who are leading this search and rescue effort.
Absolutely. And speaking of safety, there are nearby residents of the other tower built with Champlain Tower at the same time. And in that area, are there concerns about their safety? How are they responding? And do you think those residents should leave those buildings around this tower?
Certainly questions have been raised. I don't want to create some kind of panic here. We don't have any specific reason to think that there are risks to any other building, but obviously if somebody doesn't feel safe, they should relocate just for their own peace of mind. We don't know the causes of this. It's going to be a massive investigation. That investigation really, though, needs to wait until we can see if there is still some possibility that someone can be rescued. So while that search and rescue operation continues, that is our focus. But of course, there are some concerns. And again, for anyone who doesn't feel safe, we're encouraging people to act in a way that makes them not feel like they're at risk. And anybody that chooses to should consider relocating. But at the moment, there is no specific reason to think that there is a risk to anybody else there. But till we know, no one can say definitively.
And as you said, these are early days. Getting at the why of this will take thorough investigation, analysis, and a long time. But as one of the leaders there, politically, do you see there are policy issues that are arising? I mean, there was an inspection there in 2018 that did identify some significant problems. Remedying them, it was a walloping bill, and I guess the people there were considering how best to do that. Do you see any policy issues at this point coming out of this catastrophe?
There are certainly going to be policy issues with study. We need answers. The people who live there, the people who live anywhere on the coast in this state need answers. And of course, there are going to be policy considerations, and we're going to look at them. And, we need answers, as I said. But at the moment, our thoughts and our prayers are with those families. And for right now, the focus is this prayer that someone can still be rescued there. And we're going to move on to all those other issues. But right now, the focus is on the missing and on their families.
Properly so. Thank you very much for that. Representative Joseph Geller, best to you and to the Surfside community. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.